Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amir Bahari and we are broadcasting live from Kuala Lumpur today. And it's 9 o'clock in Kuala Lumpur and we shall begin our session today with the recitation of Kitab Al-Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين صدق الله العظيم. Welcome everybody to our program today under An-Nasihin. And today I would like to welcome all of you and I would like to introduce you to all our panel speakers today. I will begin with, so everybody, all the panel speakers will be given 30 seconds to introduce yourself, your name, your designation, and basically what people that you like to assist and referral that you're looking for. And today we shall begin with Raja Safia. Ladies first. Raja Safia, over to you. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Alright, thank you Amir. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is Raji Safia daripada Zurich Takaful. I'm a wealth planner with Zurich dah 12 tahun. So for tonight, I'm looking for orang-orang yang dah pernah sakit kritikal seperti kanser dan sebagainya, yang telah di-reject dia punya life policy. So kami ada menawarkan insurans ataupun takaful hayat untuk orang-orang yang telah sakit. Jadi sekiranya anda mengenali sesiapa saja yang inginkan coverage untuk takaful, sila hubungi saya. Okay, terima kasih. Back to you Amir.
Safia, for the benefit of our guests in overseas, because today actually we have a lot of people coming from the UK.
Oh, how come?
Because actually we are broadcasting live for actually this is an international forum. So probably like to do your 30 seconds in English if it's okay with you.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum. My name is Raja Safia from Zurich Takaful. I'm a wealth planner. Okay. For tonight, I would like to encourage those who have been rejected their life policies application because they have got existing illness, for example, diabetes, cancer, and anything. So in Zurich Takaful, we do have products for those people who already have existing illness, which other companies do not, have rejected the offer for life policy, etc. So for tonight, please introduce me to those who needs life protection, and they can't get it elsewhere. My name is Raja Safia from Zurich Takaful. Thank you.
Thank you, Raja Safia. And the next in the line, I would like to invite Richard. 30 seconds, your name, your designation, and referral that you are looking for. Richard, can you please unmute? Richard, unmute.
Thank you, Ame. Assalamualaikum. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Richard. I am an accountant by training. I am a company auditor by registration, but I have spent my career in consulting, technology, and corporate strategy. I stumbled into the field of limited liability partnerships, and then that led on into the rabbit hole of family estate planning. And I currently create structures for multi-generational family asset planning. And I'm pleased to be here tonight with Ame and Anwar, where we have formed An-Nasihin. And Raja Safia, you mentioned Zurich Takaful is the old MAA Takaful,
yes.
Right?
Yes, right.
I did some work at MAA maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
During Omar Swift time.
I see.
He was chief executive.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice to meet you, and small world. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Small world. Yeah.
You're on mute. Ame, you're on mute.
To all our panelists, if it's not your turn to speak, I hope that you can unmute your mic. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, the next I'd like to invite Anwar. Anwar, over to you. 30 seconds. Name, company, and referral you're looking for.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Thank you, Brother Ame, and good to see Dr. Richard and Raja Safia. So, inshallah, my area of service is in wealth management. So, this year is my 31st year in the financial industry, and my area of expertise is managing clients' wealth. When we are talking about managing clients' wealth, it can be in multi aspect of wealth, and also at the same time, the wealth can be in multi jurisdiction. And that's my area of services. And looking for the people who are looking for a manager of their wealth. Thank you. Back to Brother Amir.
Thank you very much, Brother Anwar. Now it's my turn. Good morning, good evening, everybody. This is a can. You don't want to be in a can. It is pressurized, it's small, and there's no room to maneuver. Now, this is where I come in. I make sure that your assets, your relationship, and your family is not being stuffed in a can. And I do it through marriage agreement, trust, and Islamic will. My name is Amir Bahari from Bahari and Bahari. And remember, plan when you can before you are can in the plan. Thank you. And with that, we will go straight into our session tonight. And tonight, Raja Safia, I would like to invite you to become Diana. So can you please rename as Diana?
Macam mana nak rename ni?
It's okay. You just go to the three dots. Okay, I will rename you. Let me
Can
see.
you please
Okay, you
rename
go.
for me? I couldn't find because I'm from the
Okay.
handphone. It's too small.
Oh, okay, right.
Mm.
Okay.
You tolong rename for me, boleh?
Okay, edit name. Okay, so you are Diana, right?
Diana
Okay,
apa Diana Rafa?
Diana Ross
Wow.
or Diana Tulip?
Diana Tulip. Just put Diana there lah.
Okay,
Princess
Diana. Okay,
Diana.
sorry.
There's a Princess Diana.
Princess
Inspired.
Diana. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, right. Okay, so okay, we have the brief today, and now Diana is meeting the three An-Nasihin advisors. And okay, let me start. Are we ready? Are we ready to go? Hot to go?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Good evening, Miss Diana. My name is Amir Bahari. I'm from An-Nasihin together with Richard and Anwar. First of all, I would like to thank you for coming to An-Nasihin for us to address your concern. Now, before we start our session, I would like to know whether we'd like to assure you that our meeting today is strictly confidential. It's strictly confidential. And most importantly, I'd like you to know that we are governed by our ethics. Myself, I'm a lawyer. I'm governed under the Bar Council rulings. Richard is an accountant, so his confidentiality is being governed by the MIA. And Anwar is a licensed financial advisor, and he is governed by the Code of Ethics under the Bank Negara Malaysia. So, before coming in, our staff have given you a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, and we have signed all this NDA. May I know whether you have signed the NDA?
No.
Okay, we'll make sure that before we complete this session, is it okay if we sign the NDA first, so that we make sure that every non-disclosure agreement whereby whatever discussed here remains here? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Now you've signed the NDA. Now I would like to know how can we assist you today?
Okay. My husband passed away last year. and then he left me some. I mean, he left not left me. He left some assets. I mean, they've got properties, shares, stocks, company shares, a lot of other things. And I have three children, two of which are mine, two girls and one adopted girl. But the thing is,
Diana, I'm sorry.
yes.
Now, is it okay if I take the lead in this interview?
Okay,
Would it
go
be
ahead, please.
okay? All right.
Yeah.
Now, may I know, what would you like to talk about today?
I need assistance and I need guidance on how do I go about, distributing the assets of my husband. Basically, because he did not leave any will behind, and I've just found out that he actually has another wife, which he got married some years back in Thailand, and he has two sons with her. So I'm quite worried for the sake of my three kids here, and one of them are adopted. I'm sure she will, you know, she doesn't have any rights to any of these assets whatsoever because there's no will written for her. So I need your help in, in advising me how do I go about,
So
with
what I'm hearing is you are looking for advisory for the distribution of assets of your late husband.
yeah.
Okay, and is there any other things that you would like to talk about today?
At the moment, no. But as we go along, if something came to mind, then I will, ask you then.
Okay, so now what I'm hearing is that number one, would you like to know more about distributing the assets of your late husband? Number
Mm-hmm.
two, you found out that he has another wife with two sons.
Yeah.
And number three, you have children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
May I know how many? May I know the gender of your children?
I have three girls. Two of my own. One is adopted.
Okay. Now, may I know what is your goal in meeting us today? When you step out of the room today, what would you like to be accomplished?
Well, since I knew that my husband has got another wife, I think it's only right that she and the kids would have her rights on the estate of my late husband. So I need your advice on how I proceed with that, so that she will get whatever that she's supposed to get. Because I don't want to eat, they say jangan memakan harta anak yatim. So I think it's a big sin. I don't want to commit that sin, and I want to be fair to everyone.
Okay, number one, what I'm hearing is you want to make sure that the rightful heirs are given their rights under the distribution law. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
hearing?
Yes.
Okay, and number two is, do you have any other goals for you when you meet us today?
Not really. That's my main concern.
Okay, so you're looking into making sure that the rights of all your beneficiaries are taken care of.
Yeah. And
Okay,
I'm also worried because some of the brothers are very very interested in getting their hands. I'm sure they have got rights to that as well, but I just want to make sure that the immediate ones are covered, and should they have any rights, then you guys advise me what I should do next.
okay. So what I'm hearing is number one, you want to make sure that the rights of all parties are taken care of. Number two, the rightful heirs are given their portions, their portions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. And okay, I think we are in the point of alignment. And number three, is there any other concerns that you would like to address?
mm, Not that I can think of.
Okay, right. So okay, I'm doing some alignment with you. Richard, Anwar, is there any question like to ask Diana?
You mentioned the children. Can you tell me the ages of your children and the other children?
Oh, the other children is 5 and 7, and my kids are 20, 22, and 24.
And all are resident in Malaysia?
Yes.
I'm very sorry, and our condolences upon the loss of your husband.
Thank
I
you.
know it's a trying time, but please, we're here to help. And my understanding is your husband did not leave any will or wasiat or hiba or any instructions behind.
Yes, but
And
he
so,
has he does have life policies which have got hiba that is under my name.
and that's all been resolved and cashed out, or
No, no, I've not done that yet.
Guys, just to make sure, I'm hearing some background noise. May I know where is it coming from? Or is it a crossover?
Do you hear it still?
No, now it's no longer.
Okay.
Okay, right. Continue, Richard.
no further questions, Your Honor.
Amir can hear you. You're mute.
My
Anwar, do you
question
have
is on, yeah, I would like where all those reside, whether it's in Malaysia jurisdiction or is it in Malaysia and other country?
It's all in Malaysia, but I need to check actually because he might have some in the UK, but it's still in the midst of investigation, so I haven't come back. I haven't got back the results on those.
Okay. Reason behind because when you have in UK, there are some asset we need to be careful because it will be subject to the situation or legal aspect in UK. So that's then why I'm asking. So
What
we
do you
need
mean by
to
legal?
be sure on that whether they are from UK.
What do you mean by legal aspect?
Because
I think
if you're talking about, for example, if yes, Brother May wanted to.
I think what Anwar is referring to is the estate duty. There is estate duty laws imposed in UK, whereas Malaysia we do not have estate duty laws. So certain assets may be subjected to estate duty if it's under the UK, is in the UK jurisdiction.
Understand.
Anwar, any other questions, Anwar, you'd like to address to Diana?
Just that for now.
Okay, then, sorry. Richard, go ahead.
Diana, what have you made any arrangements for your matters and your asset and estate planning at the moment, Diana?
I have. Yes, I have. I have made my wasiat.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, may I know roughly how much is your late husband's estate worth?
It's about 72 million.
That's ringgit, yeah?
Yeah, ringgit. Wow, in pounds. Just imagine if it's in pound. Wow.
Okay, now based on the fact finding at this point of time, if I may recapitulate, your late husband has two wives. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And one is married in Thailand. Am I correct?
Yeah.
From your knowledge, was the marriage registered?
I don't have any idea. How do I go and check about that? Whether it's registered in Malaysia or not?
Okay,
Okay,
we
I'm
can.
just curious. For those who are married in Thailand, if they're not registered here, will the wife be, eligible for the husband's estates?
Yes,
So,
they are subject to the marriage being recognized by the Malaysian court. So if she wants to claim the assets of your late husband, she would have to go to court and to have the marriage to be recognized under the Malaysian law,
Okay.
and for the marriage certificate to be issued under the Malaysian jurisdiction before she can lawfully make a claim under the Malaysian jurisdiction. Okay, now from my understanding, he has the deceased has two sons, aged 5 and 7,
Yeah.
and between you and your late husband, you have two daughters and one adopted daughter. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Now, from what I heard at the beginning of our interview, one of your main goal is to make sure that the right of the legal heirs are given accordingly.
Yes.
Okay, um, now assuming that the marriage is being recognized in Malaysia on the basis that all the pillars of marriage has been fulfilled under all the pillars of marriage or the rukun nikah has been fulfilled, then each wife of the deceased will share equally, which is if there's one wife, it'll be 1/8 of the total asset. But if there are two wives, then the asset would be 1/16. Yep. So okay, and for all the children, which are two sons and two daughters, biological children, the two sons will inherit 2 portion each, and the two daughters will inherit 1 portion each. So under the Faraid law, the son will inherit twice of that to the daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. And for the adopted daughter, they will not be any share under the Faraid distribution unless the deceased has made a will. Now, from your knowledge, do you know whether the deceased has made any written will or oral will?
Not that I know of. No.
Now, then as the law, as it stands right now, two wives will inherit 1/16 each, and the remainder 14/16 will be divided into 6 portions. Yeah. And each son will get 2 portions more compared to the daughter. So if the son, assuming that the daughter will inherit 5 million, then each son will inherit 10 million. But for the full calculation, we shall avail it to you by the end of this interview.
Okay.
Now, has any of the children or has anyone made started the proceeding to distribute the assets from your knowledge?
No.
And who actually has the list of assets of the deceased?
What do you mean by the list of the? Oh, the list of all his. I do.
You have full access to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now basically, if you wish to start the estate distribution process, you will need to collate all the list of assets and the liabilities of the deceased, as a first step before we prepare the court documents. So do you think you'll be able to avail us the list of assets? Diana, can you
Sorry,
hear us?
you're breaking. I think it's something wrong with my. Hang on. Okay. It's okay now. All right. Can you please repeat that again?
Okay, now for us to start the estate distribution process, we will need you to avail us the list of assets and liabilities.
Okay.
Do you think you'll be able to do that do you think you'll be able to avail us the documents?
When do you need them?
As soon as you're ready with it.
Okay.
Okay, right. So under the Malaysian, also I'd like to inform you on the estate distribution process. The first thing you need to do is that there'll be 2 steps that we have to make. Number one, we'll have to apply from the Sharia court in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. The Sharia court with regard to Sijil Faraid. May I know, in your IC, may I know where is your place of residence?
In Kajang?
So Kajang falls under Selangor. So basically, we have to go to the Shah Alam Syariah High Court. And at the same time, we have to make an application at the Civil High Court in Kuala Lumpur for you to get what we call letters of administration.
Okay.
This letter of administration empowers you to deal with all the assets of the deceased. Okay. So far, has there been any claims made by any of the beneficiaries on the estate?
No.
No. Okay. Now, in the meanwhile, based on the brief that we have received by one of our associates, it's written that you're actually contemplating into looking into the interest of your children by doing inheritance planning for your assets. Is it true based on the brief that we have received?
Yeah.
Now, may I know what kind of inheritance planning that you've made so far?
Well, I have already made a will whereby I have given a hibah to my adopted daughter, and also I have already put aside some assets for my children, and I also have some life policies, and which the beneficiaries are my kids.
May I know who prepared this will? Do you prepare yourself or is prepared by a professional company?
It's prepared by An-Nasihin trustee.
Okay, when you say that you prepared a will, now you mentioned the word hibah. Now, is it prepared in one document or a separate document?
A separate document.
Have you had the documents to be reviewed by an independent third party? Professional?
No.
Now, as you are aware, are you aware about how the rules of wills governs a Muslim estate?
I'm quite aware.
Are you aware that under the Faraid law, if you are to pass on, since you have only 2 daughters, about 20% of your estate, about 1/3 of your estate may go to your siblings?
Yeah.
Now, in this case, from the brief that we received, we understand that you are a revert and none of your siblings are Muslims. Am I correct?
Yes.
So technically, 1/3 of your estate will go to the Baitul Mal. Are you comfortable with that?
Not really. Is there any way I can avoid that from happening? I mean, I would rather, I don't have anything against those assets going to Baitul Mal, but I would prefer if I have a say in where my money or my estate is going to go should I pass away. That means I will pass it maybe to some rumah anak yatim or masjid or whatever, It's at least I have a say in it rather than passing it to Baitul Mal, because I heard they have got so much money.
That's why
That's secondary lah, because now we're talking about my husband here, right?
No, actually, from my understanding and reading of the whole thing, is that actually we want to make sure that the interests of your children are covered.
Yeah.
Now, being a revert, 1/3 of your assets actually will go to Baitul Mal. So that's why I'd like to know whether you're comfortable with that fact.
Not really. I'm not comfortable. To be honest, I'm not comfortable.
Okay, and I think I will pass it to Richard to do the fact finding on what we can do to help you with regard to your estate plan, inheritance planning. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Ame. Diana, it's a very simple thing. You have 2 choices to ensure your assets do not go to Baitul Mal. The first choice is live forever and do not die. The second choice is if you do die and you don't live forever, then to not have assets in your name at the point of death, right?
Wow.
That
Okay.
means structuring your affairs now. Now, you're still alive. You have three options. Your first option is to do nothing. That means like what your husband did or what most people do is they say, inshallah, and they let other people inherit their problem. So you don't have to do any work, but when you die, when you go to heaven, you leave hell behind, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first option is good for the deceased, not so good for the beneficiaries. The second option is to leave some instructions behind. That means during your lifetime, the assets are held in your name and you leave a will or wasiat or hiba, which is leaving instructions for people to execute after you have gone. So the second option means making some type of plans, but then relying on others to execute your plans on your behalf. Now, in this case, however you plan, you have to consider faraid distribution. And depending on what assets you are and how you hiba or how you leave them behind, there is always the risk that your instructions will not be executed properly in accordance with your instructions, and or there may be challenges to the instructions that you leave behind. So that's the second of your three options. Your third option is to restructure things now. That means take your assets, take what you have, and put them in secure structures where you actually transfer these out of your personal name and into appropriate vehicles so that upon your death, these assets are part of that vehicle and no longer your assets that are subject to distribution of, or they don't go to your estate. In fact, you can have a combination of a structure and also item number two, because you will still have items left in your name. You can have things like tabung haji, amanah saham national, that only individuals can own. And so you can't transfer that into a vehicle. So when we consider a multi-generational family asset plan, it's basically taking a look at your assets and taking a look at your family and how you want your family to enjoy what you have built up over your lifetime. Now, the ways of how you can build effective vehicles for structuring your multi-generational assets are, there's quite a few. The traditional one is to use a trust under trust law, where you have settlors, you have beneficiaries. The other option is to use a foundation. Some people will put assets into a sendiran berhad, but you have shares in a sendiran berhad that will go, if you own them, to your estate. Or some people will transfer assets into what we now use, a limited liability partnership, an LLP, which is a new vehicle in Malaysia over the last 10 years. And we find that it's quite an effective and a cost-effective solution as an alternative. Now, remember I said three options you have, yeah? First is to do nothing. Second is to leave instructions. Third is to put a structure in place now. So when you put a structure in place now, you have again several options, right? And depending on the nature of the assets, depending on the nature of your family, the different structures may suit different people. So you have to custom and tailor make for your requirements. Now, the reason I want to highlight multi-generational is most people, as they get old, they say, "Oh, I gave my land to my daughter. I give my house to my son. I have solved my problem. I've given everything away." Now, what you've actually done is pass the problem to your beneficiaries. So your children, 30 years or 40 years or 50 years from now, would have the same problem and have to distribute assets again. So when we consider a multi-generational structure, you put all your assets into one structure, then you specify who will benefit, who your beneficiaries are in future generations. So you manage the entire structure depending on how large your family is and how large your assets are to last one or two or three generations. So I think that's just what I'd like to introduce the options that you have and whether you have any questions.
Number three sounds very interesting. I'm quite familiar with LLP, but you need to explain furthermore, the details about the structure and everything.
I suggest before we dive into LLPs, Brother Anwar can perhaps give you an outline of some of the options other than LLP in the third category.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. Yeah, I mean, when we are looking on among the solution that we can use just now, other than LLP, among them we can have a trust, which using the onshore trust. Using the onshore trust, there will be some restriction. We are talking about the number of years, yeah? And then when we're talking about using offshore trust, means to say the trustee will act on behalf of the beneficiary. Other way of using it, if we are talking about your size just now, wealth that you mentioned just now, which about 70 million, then we can use even offshore trust. When we're using offshore trust, uh, means to say that whatever asset that we're going to endow will need approval from local authority. The other option that available, maybe you are using the foundation. But when I mentioned about the foundation, we cannot use the onshore foundation because based on the Malaysia law, the onshore foundation only can be done based on the purpose foundation, but not for the private foundation. So due to that, if we wanted to go and use the foundation structure, we can use the offshore solution. And one in Asia Pacific, what we have in Singapore, in Labuan, and also in Hong Kong. But the thing is that the foundation law or the act that available in order to establish a foundation, in order for you to have a private foundation, the only place that available for you to do is in Labuan. So these are among the things that you can do. When we are talking about using the foundation, you will have the structure whereby inside the foundation, you will be the founder, for example. So when you become the founder, you can write a letter of wishes from the founder. And then what happen is that uh, the whatever constitution that going to be draft or going to be amended in the future must not go against your letter of wishes. And next that you're going to have a supervisor or the protector. And who are these supervisor or protector? will be the one who understand how the foundation work, and this person will make sure that any amendment or changes that are going to happen in the future must not go against the wishes of the founder. Next, you will have a board. So the board can be you yourself also. It can be your children that can sit as a board members. Then after that, you will have the management team. So the management team normally will involve the professionals who will manage your asset. And it can be among your family members or it can be other than your family members. Then next, you will have the secretary. The purpose of the secretary is to make sure that all the reporting is done properly. Then after that, you will have the beneficiary. And among the beneficiary, one of them can be you yourself. So this, when we're talking about the foundation. When you're looking on the trust, it's more simple, whereby you can create a trust deed or establish the trust deed, and whatever you do, whatever the trustee will do must be based on the trust deed. So that's a little bit about the trust and the foundation and the differences between the two.
Oh, it seems that Anwar got kicked out, I think. So, okay. Hopefully we can add him. Oh, he's back. He's back. He's in back. Anwar, do you have anything to add, Anwar?
Yeah, I mean, just that. Is there anything that you wanted, any question you wanted to ask from Madam Diana?
Um, uh, Not really. It's giving me big headache now. It's like I'm hearing all these terms that I'm not familiar with. You know, it's like I need to digest them, and once I digest all of them, then only I will have
Okay,
more questions for you guys.
Okay. Diana, if you
noted.
may allow us,
So,
if you
may
may
I
allow
go
us,
a little bit further, Brother
uh,
Amir?
no, it's okay. I think we can get
Yeah.
it here. I can get it here. Probably we can. Actually, we are here to simplify the solutions for you. Now, when it comes to planning, let me start by asking a very simple question. May I know how much you're worth at this point of time?
You told me I'm worth 100 million.
Like, it's in the brief. Okay, you're worth 100 million. Okay, Richard, probably you'd like to take over on how the proceed on the portfolioing the assets and
So
structuring
sorry,
of the assets.
that 100 million is ringgit.
Yeah, it's ringgit.
Okay, and the most of the the assets, are they in the form of property or shares or other cash or fixed deposits, or
So
what?
much.
I mean, just on a rough percentage basis.
Um, Properties, probably about 50% of it in properties. We've got gold, we've got unit trust, we've got shares, bonds, and basically the investments, like, you know.
Okay, so what we do is, depending on the structure that you choose, whether it's a trust, whether it's a foundation, whether it's an LLP, and if you want to exercise option 3, and I think the reason you want to exercise option 3 is to, effectively manage where the direction of these assets go. And given your current situation, under traditional Farai distribution, one third of this, and that's 30, 40 million ringgit, may go to the Baitul Mal. So if you are to consider one of these appropriate structures, then what we would do is, again, look at all the nature of your assets and which of these assets can be transferred either into the trust or into the LLP or into the Sendirian Berhad. Or it could be a combination of some of these, depending on the nature of the assets that you have. Now, when you transfer these assets, there will be stamp duty implications. If you're transferring property and market prices, there may be a 3 to 4% stamp duty involved, right? If you have Senderan Berhad or you have these types of assets, stamp duty is much less. It's 10% of that. It's 0.3% for transferring. And if you have large holdings in private companies, there are other ways of transferring control without having to transfer using a transfer instrument that's subject to stamp duty. So there's the two things you need to look at in considering which type of structure. One is the nature of your family, the nature of your beneficiaries, how you want to distribute your assets. If some people say, "Oh, I want to follow Faraid. I want my sons to have double or my daughters to have half shares." Some people say, "No, no, I love all my children equally. I want all the girls and all the boys to get equally." And then you may decide, "Oh, I want my adopted child to share just equally as my other natural children," right? So again, the appropriate structure will take care of your needs. Um, and at the same time, what you don't transfer across, what assets are still in your name, then you need to protect with either the wasiat or the will and the hibah. And these assets, upon your death, may be challenged subject to the faraid. So, but at least you know what you have put aside and is protected and what may be at some risk. So it's kind of managing your affairs and putting your assets in safe custody, knowing that the future generation will be able to enjoy the fruits of what you have built up all these years.
Okay, understand. I cannot hear you.
So, Richard, considering that Diana's daughter is 20, 22, and 24, they may be, and these are what we call entering the marriageable age, usually in the Malaysian setting society. Now, can you share with Diana what would be the advantages of having an LLP if she is to consider LLP as a vehicle for inheritance planning?
I think one of the most important aspects of multi-generational asset planning is the concept of the family asset. Yeah. So the assets that you have built up were created by you, right? You want your children to enjoy the benefit of these assets. Now, assuming you got 100 million, and assuming you got 5 children, and assuming you want to treat all of them equally, so each child, 100 million divided by 5, is going to be worth 20 million ringgit each. Now, these children and whatever age you specify what and when they can have access to controls of the assets. As Ame mentioned, these people may marry, these people may get into other relationships. Now, the risk is you take your family asset and you give it to your children, and then say they get married, and then they get divorced. So if you have one child that's got 20 million of assets, in her divorce case, the spouse may say, "I want half of the assets that you own." But in reality, those assets are not the product of that marriage, of that relationship. Those assets actually belong to you, to your family. So what we try and create within these multi-generational structures is that spouse of your children cannot inherit or share in these assets, right? So in the instance that, say, your daughter were to pass away, those assets or the share of the value of your family estate would not go to her spouse, but go to her children. If the children are below 18, they will be held in trust pending these children achieving the age of 18. And if, say, you have a daughter that does not have any children, but she is married, upon her death, her share will go back to the remaining siblings. So if you imagine you have, assets of 100 million ringgit, and you have 5 children, and you say 20 million ringgit each, upon the death of one of the child with no children, her share will then be distributed equally to the other remaining siblings. Right? It will not go to her ex-spouse. And so what we're doing is keeping family assets within the bloodline. Yeah, that means only your children, your grandchildren, and their children can inherit. It cannot go sideways into other cases. There is also the circumstance where, if one of your child has doing business or drives a car and accidentally kills people negligently, and because people know, oh, this person has a rich parent, people may sue or people may make her bankrupt, right? And so we are also able to structure to ensure that in circumstances like that, your child would lose the right to those assets. And so the family asset is protected. So what we're trying to do at all times, look at two things, your family and your assets, protect the assets, manage the wealth for the family and for future generations. And depending again on the nature of your family structure and on the nature of assets, we're in a position to say which is the best vehicle or which are the best vehicles or documents for you to plan moving forward. Thank you.
So far, Diana, may I know how does that sound to you? Is it something that resonates with you?
Yeah. That sounds good. I love the part whereby the child get married and the husband divorced from her, and the husband wants her assets and things like that, because I heard that all the time happening. So it's, yeah, that really resonates with me.
So, Richard, or how would you move forward with this? Since Diana is find that this solution is something which is resourceful for her.
Depending on the structures that we choose, and perhaps I'll leave Anwar to talk about the foundation of the trust, but a family estate LLP, what we would do is sit down with you, look at your family structure, look at your assets, ask you questions, and then say, well, what happens if children pass away? What happens if children get married? What happens if children get children? What happens if children get divorced? What happens if children get bankrupt? And then what happens if children live overseas? Because you then have tax implications for income in Malaysia that may be taxed by your children that may decide to live overseas one day in countries where income is taxed on a global basis. So because we have built up a case study of many different families, we're able to use our experience to be able to try and understand the potential problems and then build in the protection for your family. One of the beauties of LLP, and LLP is a fairly new vehicle in Malaysia. It's about 10 years old. The Limited Liability Partnership Act is 2012. It comes under the jurisdiction of SSM, Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia, which is the same place where you go for register of business or register of companies, or where you register your Senderan Berhad. Because it's also so new, everything is done online in the cloud, and you don't have any paperwork. So to start an LLP, everything can be done during MCO. We don't lodge documents over the counter. Everything is done online. And then all our documentation can be done electronically. So in a trust structure, you have what is called a trust document. In a Senderan Berhad, you have a memorandum and articles of association. In a traditional partnership, you have a partnership agreement. In a limited liability partnership, you also have a partnership agreement. So the partnership agreement becomes the family instructions, and it's written in plain English. It can be as short as one page and normally goes on for about 5 to 10 pages plus appendices, where you very clearly lay out how you want your assets and your family to behave now during your lifetime and after your lifetime, and for how many generations moving forward. And so it's very flexible, very powerful, very simple to administer. And perhaps from a taxation purpose, an LLP in Malaysia is quite unique compared to LLPs in other jurisdictions, in that the LLP is taxed in Malaysia like the senderan berhad. That means the LLP is an entity that submits a tax return, has income, has expenditure, and if it needs and it's assessed, it pays tax. When the LLP pays profits or dividends to its partners, it's tax-free to the partners in Malaysia. So it's very simple. It's like owning shares in a senderan berhad. Very different from a traditional partnership. In a traditional partnership, you take your share of that partnership income and declare that an income in your income tax return. So for beneficiaries of an LLP, you don't need to declare anything in your tax return until distributions occur. And even when distributions occur, you can declare them, but you don't have to pay tax on these distributions because the LLP, would have already paid income tax. Perhaps I'll leave Anwar to kindly roughly explain how to set up the structures or what work is involved in creating trusts, onshore, offshore, or foundations. Thank you.
Anwar, can you hear us?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So is that now? I think I already briefed about a little bit about just now the trust and the foundation, and I believe from what being shared by Dr. Richard just now, and also what I shared with Madam Diana, is the reason behind we wanted to avoid the troublesome that normally will be faced by everybody. And currently you are facing it because your late husband, did not prepare a proper planning. So you need to go through the probate process, which are troublesome. And I believe is very tough, put you in a very tough situation. How are you going to deal with the other family? And by for yourself, I believe you don't want to allow your children to face a similar problem in the future. So by having a proper structure being drafted and being put into places, we'll be able, inshallah, to reduce the challenge that may be faced by the people who we left behind, whereby they need to go through all such problem. Because when we do this thing proper, everything are at better place and being put into proper structure. When things happen, whatever things, maybe death happen, the probate is not triggered because the structure is considered perpetual. Pass back to Brother Amir, or if there are any other further questions, Madam Diana.
No, I don't have any more questions. No question at the moment.
So at this point, I take it that this is just an introductory meeting where actually we're exploring two things. Number one, the estate of your late husband. And number two, the potential planning for your inheritance planning to protect the interests of your daughters. Is this something that we have addressed to you in general, Diana?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, I do understand, what are the points that needs to be taken.
Right. So just at the point of alignment with regard to your to the deceased estate, is that under the Sharia law, under the Malaysian Sharia law, Now, may I know between you and the other wife, who is who married the your late husband first? Was it you or the other one?
Of course, me first.
Okay, right. So basically, under the Malaysian law recognize what we call harta sepencarian or matrimonial assets, of which the quote unquote senior wife would have can claim more of the estate prior to distribution. So what my coming from is this: say that the estate is worth, your late husband is worth 100 million. The joint acquired property you can claim is a minimum of 33 million and a maximum of 50 million. Now, from this, now assuming that the court allows the claim of 50 million as your right as a wife, which is to be shared with the second wife. So you've got to negotiate and come to a settlement on who gets what from this 50 million. And the remainder 50 million would be divided according to the laws of Faraid. So far, do you are you able to follow what I've explained?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, at first actually I thought of the Hartis Pencarian, so I thought of mentioning it since you brought it up. Yeah,
Okay,
I mean you
so
muted.
basically, under the law, basically before the property can be distributed under Faraid, the two wives can claim the harta sepencarian or the jointly acquired property or matrimonial assets prior to Faraid distribution. Yeah. And do you think you'll be able to communicate with your sister Hani, adik Madu, with regard to this matter?
Okay, well, all right. I don't have a choice. I have to do that, right?
Yes, but the thing is, under the Faraid distribution, one thing that you've got to be prepared is, because Faraid talks about your portion and not who is getting what. So you must be prepared to the fact that you have to liquidate everything and distribute cash as a worst case scenario. Is that something that you're prepared to do?
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think we've lost Diana. Let's see whether she's coming back shortly.
How much more time do we have?
I think we can go on another 15 minutes.
Okay,
We've
perhaps
gone live for 1 hour.
I'd like to cover one area, which is, a lot of people ask, and I mean, first thing is multi-generational family assets are not just for Muslims. It's for anybody, right? It goes across religion, it goes across race, it goes across nationality. So anybody anywhere in the world can actually create a multi-generational family estate plan in Malaysia. You don't have to just be Muslims. But one question we do get from a lot of Muslims is, am I going against God's will? Doesn't the Quran say I must follow Faraid, right? And this troubles a lot of people. A lot of people have issues with this, and that's why they sometimes say, I cannot transfer assets, or I cannot put a structure in place, or I cannot have a will, right? What I like to think of is, in Islam never invented the concept of senderan berhad, right? In the time of the Prophet and during Islamic history, businesses were always partnerships. And upon the death of any partner in a partnership, the partnership was dissolved. And then the partnership reforms again with the remaining partners. And then the assets are then given to the estate or distributed to the Faraid. So which is why you find Islamic empires did not last long. After several generations, assets are fragmented. Whereas, say, in English or in Chinese culture, they have the concept of the eldest son gets everything. Now, notwithstanding that, Islam actually did then create the concept of the wakaf. So the concept of the wakaf is a process, and wakaf is like a trust, whereby during your lifetime you take your assets, transfer it to this vehicle. So the wakaf is a vehicle that will survive your death. It is no longer your asset. It's an asset transferred to the wakaf during your lifetime. So you no longer own it, but you then specify this wakaf is for, charitable purposes, or this wakaf is for hospitals or for animals or for prayer. And so that's well established in Islamic literature over the last 1500 years. Now, the concept of the wakaf, however, in Malaysia, like many other jurisdictions globally, has been to give the power of management of wakaf estate to state authorities. And over time, this has led to disappointment in many countries, either through inefficiency or corruption or sheer robbery. Assets of wakafs were taken away, or the wakaf was not managed in accordance with the original instructions of the donor. So you will find in Malaysia, our response has been to create things like trust, or to create things like foundations, or the LLP structures. So when you create a trust, or you create an LLP family estate structure, I like to say that it's like a wakaf. It behaves like a wakaf. That means from a religious and a Muslim and a Farai perspective, this is no longer your personal asset. It now has been transferred to a vehicle that will act in accordance with your instructions to survive you. And I think that's one way of explaining to people how these are valid and fair and good legitimate ways of managing your multi-generational family assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Diana, do you have any questions that do you like us to address, or concern you like us to address?
Not really. I think
So
basically, or Richard and Shiana has covered all the bases. It's just that I need to go through, the details and whatnot.
right. So based on our discussion today, you came in. We started the meeting with your concern on the distributing of assets to your what we call to your late husband's and other wife, right? And and your goal was to make sure that you wants to make sure that all their rights are being distributed properly and fairly according to the law. And we've explained to you about your rights under Harta Sepencarian, which is prior to Faraid distribution, right? After settlement of all debts. And I would like you, and you raise the issue whether the brothers have the right under the law, under the Faraid law. Now, assuming that the second marriage is recognized under the Malaysian law, then by the fact of the presence of the son, the estate will be distributed according to all the children of the deceased and the two wives. However, if the marriage is not recognized under the law for whatever reason, then the deceased then you'll be recognized as the legal and lawful wife and the two children, and about 20% of your estate of your late husband estate will go to either his siblings or the Baitul Mal, depending on the circumstances, which we will be able to inform you when we have full details.
Okay.
Okay. And number 3, by the fact that the deceased does not have wills or hibah, the at this point of time, the assets will be frozen. That means nobody can deal with it until the letters of administration are issued by the court. and provided that there is no contest by any other parties, then the LA will be issued to the beneficiary or the legal heir that commence the legal proceeding. Now, however, due to the fact that the children from the second marriage are a minor, they are 5 and 7, so there are other legal implications with regard to the assets of the deceased. So these will be addressed once we have access to all the list of asset and liabilities of the deceased, and also when we can clarify the status of the deceased second marriage.
Chair,
So,
Chair
so
Amir, I believe we have a question in the comments we should address.
yes, yeah, I think we will cover this at the end of our session after we have completed with Diana. So Diana, may I know, so far, have you been able to address the issues that you raised when you first stepped into the office today?
Yeah.
Now, how would you
Of
sum
course,
up our whole conversation? May I know how would you sum up your whole conversation in one word?
awesome.
Sorry?
The word is awesome.
Awesome. Can you explain in one sentence?
How do I explain in one sentence? Well, basically, it fulfills the whatever that I'm supposed to, whatever that it fulfills whatever that I came up with, and whatever that Richard has explained and also Encik Anwar has explained.
Diana? I think we lost her for a second. Let's see. I'll try to remove her and then bring her back shortly. So, Richard, may I know, how would you describe the whole conversation that we had today, the whole meeting, in one word?
Umbrella.
Can you explain in one sentence?
Get your umbrella ready.
Okay, I hear you. I get you. And Anwar, how would you describe this whole conversation in one word? Sorry?
Taylor.
Anwar? Taylor. Can you describe in one sentence? Anwar, I can't hear you, Anwar. You're muted.
Things that we do for the customer is based on what is needed by the client. So it's a tailor-made kind of services.
Right. As for me, the one word that I would summarize this whole conversation would be tag, TAG. And in one sentence, dying without planning actually will raise the price tag of estate distribution compared to when you plan during your lifetime. So that's my take for tonight. And let's see whether Diana is coming in. Okay, Diana is in. I think that I'll bring her back again. Okay, now we have a question. Now, if the second wife's marriage is not registered in Malaysia, can she claim her faraid right? Now, basically, if the second wife would like to claim her faraid right under the Malaysian law, firstly, her marriage, from my understanding and from my legal practice, her marriage should be recognized under the Malaysian law before she can make that claim. And when she goes to the court to make to legalize or to get the court endorsement of the marriage, the court will look into whether all the 5 pillars of marriage is fulfilled. Namely, number 1, the bride, the groom, the wali, the guardian, the offer and acceptance, and the 2 witnesses. Now, if there is any dispute or if there is any discrepancy in this five pillar of marriage, the marriage may not be recognized under the Malaysian law. So for the benefit of our audience, in Malaysia, the what we call the syndicated marriage or marriage being conducted not outside the official which is not sanctioned by the authorities, runs to being declared as illegal or not being given judicial recognition on the basis that the requirement of the pillars of marriage being fulfilled. And one of the most what we call area where most people fail, most marriages are not recognized, the fact that the wali, the guardian, which or wali hakim, guardian, the representative of the sultan, usually if it is by a person not recognized by the state or by the court, then it runs to make the marriage to be invalid. So for those who married overseas and do not register their marriage in Malaysia, for the benefit of all our audience tonight, please make sure that the marriage comply with the law. So the law provides that within 6 months of the solemnization of marriage, they have to come back to Malaysia, register it to make sure that it is in compliance with the law, or else they run to the possibility of legitimacy of the children inheriting the assets under the Faraid system, and worse still, what is the status of the child, right? So okay, that is the question by Brother Aziz Hassan.
So I've got a follow-up question, in relation to that. What about if the second wife lives in another country and the assets are in another country? I presume the only reason we care about registering in Malaysia is because assets are in Malaysia. But what happens in the case of a second marriage that is in another country and assets are in that other country?
Is it a Commonwealth country or non-Commonwealth country?
Well, let's look at the instances of both.
Okay, now if it is in the Commonwealth country, the assets of which, for example, the assets in the UK, okay, a person dying intestate, they can apply for what we call letters of administration, and this LA can be brought to the Malaysian courts to be resealed. So basically, the authority is given to deal with the assets in the UK and in Malaysia. However, for non-Commonwealth countries, then I believe I have to check with my other legal BNI lawyers practicing in other jurisdictions to get their views on this. But it is quite common that with the globalization and the concept of global village, actually people, business owners actually own assets in multiple jurisdictions, thus creating a whole new works for a whole new puzzle for inheritance planning, basically. So that is why the business owners must make sure that they get the advice from qualified people, qualified professionals, in order to make sure that their planning complies to the legal system of each jurisdiction. So we have another question by Rahman Hasnan. Interesting discussion. Just wondering how is the proposed PLT differs from Sdn Bhd aside from the lower administrative costs. I think Richard, that would be your area.
You asked me about LLP. I can talk forever about an LLP. I do have a SSM LLP FAQ. So is there a way for us to share a link to that document? Then everybody can go and have a look at that. But the first thing to say is the government created the LLP to be a hybrid between the power of limited liability of a Sdn Bhd and the ease of management and compliance of a traditional partnership or a sole proprietor, right? So one of the earlier distinctions is in a Sdn Bhd, you have the concept of board of directors and shareholders. In an LLP, there's only one. Everybody is a partner. So a partner is sometimes like a shareholder. A partner is sometimes like a director. Yeah. LLP doesn't need an audit. It doesn't need a company secretary. You don't have to submit audited accounts to SSM. You just need to have a solvency statement done once a year. So one of the other benefits is in terms of your partnership agreement, it's very flexible how you do that. In terms of how you can increase and reduce partners coming in and out of the partnership, that also has a lot of advantages and flexibility. And these are some of the things that we've taken advantage of, which is why the LLP is a very, very useful vehicle for a multi-generational family estate plan. Generally, I find that, you know, given the cost of setting up a trust or a foundation or an overseas foundation and trust, usually you had to have assets of 100 million ringgit or 100 million US dollars to make it worthwhile. But with the LLP structure, even if you have assets of, you know, say 5, 10, 15, 50 million ringgit, it's still then very worthwhile and cost effective to create an effective LLP multi-generational structure. Thank you.
Richard, sorry, I'm a bit IT illiterate. So maybe you can type in the chat box your email address so that the audience can write into you, or I would like to put in your handphone number. We can't hear you, Richard.
Okay,
Which do you prefer?
I'll put it into the chat group.
You can put it on the probably I can type your email address.
No, what I'll do, I'll get the URL.
You'll get the URL.
Yeah.
And how can they communicate with you? I mean, you can put it on the chat box here. I think can. Okay, right. Okay. Okay. Sorry, Diana. Back to you. Your one word. Awesome. Your one sentence, please. Sorry, we can't hear you, Diana. Give me a second.
Okay,
Right.
basically, Dr. Richard and Anwar has explained, although some of the terms are quite unfamiliar to me, but basically I do get the gist of it. So inshallah, I will sit down with the other party and we will we will come back and with an understanding of what we should be doing next, because I need to explain to her, because I'm sure she's more unfamiliar with all these terms and
Who? I mean, your honey sister, your adik madu.
yeah, my honey sister, yes.
Oh, actually, if I may, professionally speaking, I think it's best that we explain to her rather than you explain to her.
Okay.
Because if you have to explain to her, then there may be the
She
issue
will
of
get
conflict of
confused
interest.
further.
Sorry?
Yeah. She will get more confused if I would.
No.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
No. Actually, there's actually a possibility of conflict of interest. So that's why we have professionals to advise her, so that if things go wrong, actually you can always sue the professionals. But your relationship with her is being taken care
She
of.
will not sue me. Yeah, you're right. You have a point there.
Okay. That's why professionals carry professional indemnity.
Yeah, betul.
Okay, right. We have one comment, very interesting discussion from Puan Halima Nur Ismail. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much, Puan, for following us. Now, so Safia, thank you very much. Now we've changed your name from Diana to Safia, so the role play is over.
Okay.
Now,
Bye, guys.
Richard, now, just out of curiosity, now, if Diana is to remarry, okay, right, can she make sure that the new husband does not have any say on the assets in the LLP?
Well, whether it's a LLP or a trust or a foundation, I'm sure while you're alive, you generally have the power to be able to make changes as and when you like. So if you want to include, you can do it. If you want to exclude, you can do it. Generally, all these structures will allow you that flexibility.
Because generally, from my observation, when what we call when the two divorcees marry, they have a tendency that they won't claim from each other's estate. Right, that's number one. And number two, I missed one question to ask Diana, whether there is a marriage agreement or not. Because if there is a marriage agreement, then the whole dynamics of conversation will be different.
What is a
So,
marriage agreement, Amir?
so basically, a marriage agreement is when you see when in a marriage, parties can actually stipulate what are the terms of the marriage, and
Is
one
it a
of it,
prenup? Prenup, is it?
okay,
Prenuptial.
actually, the Islamic law is called the post-nuptial agreement.
Oh,
Post-nup,
okay.
okay, it stems from the fact that when the man solemnizes his marriage, when the groom solemnizes the marriage,
Mm-hmm.
straight away after that, he will recite the ta'liq. Ta'liq
Yeah.
means conditional divorce. If he
Mm.
doesn't maintain his wife for 4 months,
Mm-hmm.
or if he physically assaults her, then the wife has the choice of reporting this to the court. And if the court finds that these two conditions, either of the conditions are met, then a divorce would automatically take place. So my coming from is, can the conditions is it limited only to these two conditions, or it can be expanded to other things? And the expansion of other conditions is what we call the marriage agreement. So one part of the marriage agreement can stipulate that when one party dies, what happens to the asset, to his asset, and how is it to be distributed. And in the case of occurrence of a second or third marriage, what would the status be of the current assets of the deceased? Of one party. So basically, everything is spelled out so that in cases of surprise, everything is covered, just like what Richard would have done in an LLP structure.
Okay.
So I would advise all entrepreneurs to have what I call a marriage agreement to protect the interest, and that's what we do. As a Sharia lawyer, my duty is to make sure that we cover the blind side.
Mm-mm.
Right. So before we end tonight, let's go round table. Any last parting words, Safia? Let's start with you. Last parting
Well,
words to the audience.
thank you so much to Dr. Richard and also Encik Anwar and also Encik Amir, because I think I learned so much tonight, things that I've never heard before, because I heard of LLP, but I never knew that LLP is, you can actually use LLP in this kind of situation. So thank you so much, because it's very knowledgeable, the discussion, very beneficial as well.
Thank you, Safia. Anwar, your parting words to the audience.
Yeah, for today, if you wanted to be sure that all your assets, and when you're no more in this world, it will become to the loved one you left behind. So the best thing is to plan while we are here in this world, to make sure that we don't leave them to face all the trouble that we create for them based on the hard-earned money or the assets that we build up, and later we left them with the problem that we created for them. Thank you.
Richard.
Thank you very much for inviting me tonight, and it was nice to meet everybody. I look forward to meeting all of you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And from me, this is a can. The can is small, pressurized, not much room to maneuver. What I do is I make sure that your assets, your relationship, your marriage is not being stuffed in the can. And I make sure that you stay out of the can by doing marriage agreement, wills, trust, and LLP. My name is Amir Bahari from Bahari and Bahari. Plan when you can before you are can in the plan. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Inshallah, we shall meet again in the near future. And with that, let's end our session tonight with the recitation of Tasbih Kafarah dan Suratul Asr. And Suratul Asr. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wal asr. innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And Amir Bahari, and it's a pleasure. On behalf of An-Nasihin, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you.